Hockey jerseys in the National Hockey League have evolved immensely since the NHL's founding in 1917. Manufacturers have changed, design initiatives have come and gone, and teams have put up awesome looks on the ice. And manufacturers have brought their own flair and spin on jerseys. One of the most notable jersey manufacturers in league history was Reebok. Taking over in 2005 and 2 years later, they eventually launched the Reebok Edge system league-wide in 2007. The system was designed to increase player performance and help with player needs, and designs of jerseys changed immensely during then, with many teams launching rebrands or jersey updates during this era. And obviously, as you'd expect, there'd be a lot of prototypes. So we're going to talk about every single one I could find in this today, or as much as I can. Let's get started. We start in Atlanta with this Thrashers road jersey prototype from 2006. The Thrashers redesigned their jerseys slightly with the edge switch, with the Thrashers adopting that Reebok apron-style pattern with the switch. However, this prototype design shows the jersey without that striping and with a different name bar that honestly looks like an app notification. The Boston Bruins were one of a few teams to remake their look with Reebok in 2007. They slightly updated the Spoke B logo, but this prototype shows their old design in the edge template. However, the NHL shield is slightly different in comparison, so maybe this was an early prototype as an example to the actual NHL collar from the actual design. So there isn't much known about this, but it's an interesting reality. Calgary's up next. Do you all remember the Flames 2013-2016 third jersey with that word mark? Well, it could have actually debuted in 2009 with this design, but there's very notable differences in this. There's no yellow in the design. The back is adorned much differently with a different design. A different shoulder patch logo with the outline of the city of Alberta in it, along with the buildings, and a different word mark compared to the word mark used on the actual jersey. No yellow in a Flames jersey would have been a first, and this is a very interesting design for sure. The Canes are up next with this road jersey prototype, and there's a few main differences here. They only added a shoulder yoke striping with the switch. This one keeps that, but there's no waist stripes, as you can see in this, in comparison to the final design where they kept the storm flag stripes from previous. The sleeves also are adorned differently with that storm flag pattern on the sleeves as opposed to the final design. So it's just more of a toned down version in comparison to the actual design. The Blue Jackets rebranded with a switch. However, this design shows their old primary logo on the crest of basically what was the template of their new design in 2007. It uses their old mark as in comparison to their logo that was on their alternate jersey from 2003 that was promoted to it, and the sleeve cuffs are adorned differently with red instead of just the navy blue, and there's also one star on the regular design instead of two. So, not much differences, but still quite notable. The Dallas Stars. The Stars launched a rebrand in 2013, bringing victory green and black and white as the three main colors. However, this prototype shows the new logo, but in the old color scheme, which the Stars had used since 1990 when they were in Minnesota, instead of the victory green they actually went with. But take a look at these concepts. Navy blue and gold, a scheme you probably would have never thought Dallas would have considered. But evidently, they did for their 2013 rebrand. I'm not sure that would have gone nearly as well as the victory green. But the most intriguing prototype is this jersey for alleged nod to the North Stars night that never happened from 2010. Obviously, a callback to their predecessors in Minnesota, the North Stars, where the team played until 1993 when the team relocated to Dallas. This jersey replaces the N from the North Stars logo with a D, obviously, for Dallas. I'm not sure the Minnesota Wild, though, would have liked this design, I must admit. The jersey is pretty much accurate, but it doesn't have any black in it, so. But the Minnesota Wild have used those North Stars colors for their alternate jersey since 2023 when it debuted in the Reverse Retro, after the original North Stars colors had also returned in 2021 for a white Reverse Retro jersey. The Wings are up next with this snubbed Winter Classic design from 2009. They threw back to their original design they wore as the Detroit Cougars in 1926, which had a D on the front of it, and that's the last time the Wings have worn it. However, this one shows a throwback to their 1927 design they had, but it was likely rejected due to it being basically the exact same as their 1992 NHL 75th anniversary jersey, which was eventually thrown back to for the Reverse Retro Series. Edmonton is up next. In 2007, they redesigned their uniforms to implement that apron striping pattern into the jersey. However, this prototype from 2009 shows the Oilers considered bringing back the old striping that they had used from 1996 to 2007. However, eventually, they went back to their original uniforms from 1979 to 1996 in 2010. The Florida Panthers redesigned their jerseys in 2011 just a bit, promoting red back as the home color. However, this prototype design shows that jersey with the Reebok apron striping pattern they had on their old home jersey from 2007 to 2011, which was in navy blue. Nashville debuted a navy blue third jersey in 2008 with a checkerboard pattern, but it was eventually retired after the Predators rebranded in 2011 to bring back some more yellow elements. However, do you know that navy blue third jersey could have become a home jersey, as there was a white prototype potentially created either for a road jersey or potentially as a white version of that third jersey from 2008. However, it's a very interesting design and a very definite of an alternate reality of what Nashville could have done with their brand in 2011. The New York Islanders redesigned their uniforms in 2007 with the Switch to the Edge system. However, this prototype shows basically the same jersey but with two major differences. The sleeves are adorned much differently compared to the final design, and the waist stripes are done much differently. So, not much of a difference, to be honest. Ottawa's up next with a bonanza of prototypes here. In 2007, the Senators launched a rebrand along with the Switch, redesigning the Centurion logo from their home jersey. However, that home jersey they originally had and took to the 2007 Stanley Cup Finals could have nearly made a return within this Edge system, along with that road jersey, besides the absence of waist stripes. As you can see in the prototype, and the sleeves are adorned much differently as well in this. But Ottawa is not done. In 2008, they launched this black Sens wordmark jersey, honestly one of the worst jerseys come out of the Reebok Edge program, but there are two different alternate realities here. A beige version of this was seen on the prototypes. There's also a version of that black Sens third jersey with a number on the front and a redesign of the Centurion logo on the shoulders that was never used. So in total, that's 4 different Sens Reebok Edge jersey prototypes. Pittsburgh's up next with a bit of a mystery here. This jersey could have been either for the 2009 Winter Classic or as an alternate jersey at some point. Pittsburgh threw back to their 1968 dark jersey for the 2008 Winter Classic. However, this jersey shows a bit of a different logo treatment that we never saw on the ice, along with a gradient in the striping. Very novel. I'm not sure I'd say Winter Classic, it's more of an alternate, or maybe even it was a snubbed rebrand. Anyways, a very interesting alternate reality, that's for sure. This only popped up recently as well, so maybe more information will come out on it. San Jose rebranded in 2007 with the Switch Reebok Edge, redesigning their iconic shark head logo with the Switch. However, these prototypes show their original logo as the crest, but with a different striping as well. The Sharks had much more gray in their jerseys before the Switch to the Edge program, but none of it's shown here, as the stripes are mostly solid with black cuffs on the home jersey and teal and black stripes on the road. So, they're not bad. There's no waist striping as well, like many of these prototypes, but not bad. The Bolts are up next with 2 snub designs. Firstly, we have this one. In 2007, the Lightning redesigned their uniforms, simplifying their logo's design but keeping all the colors. However, this one shows their old road jersey in the new template with the absence of waist stripes. Another prototype shows a different treatment of the Lightning's alternate logo as the crest, very similar to their current design, along with a new shoulder patch, the Reebok apron striping, and a very different number font and back adornment in comparison to the final design. A very novel and very Lightning concept. The Vancouver Canucks returned to their old scheme in blue and green with the Switch to Reebok Edge in 2007. However, their old color scheme before that of navy and maroon nearly made the switch. These prototypes have the absence of waist striping like many of the jerseys in comparison to their previous design, which had red, silver, and blue striping, with those colors being echoed on the sleeves on both of them. And lastly, the Washington Capitals with this snub prototype. It's basically the exactors they went with, but with one key detail: the crest is different. Along with that rebrand, they introduced a new alternate logo dubbed the Weagle. That logo is shown in a bit of a different imitation in this, with more red, a navy outline, and less white accents. Very novel design. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one, and like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Thanks.